Hello guys, and welcome back to this week's episode. I'm thinking of transitioning from Tuesdays with Philly to just releasing YouTube videos because I'm enjoying this so much, and I don't really think that I would characterize this as like a podcast style kind of content. I mean, I'm not here with a microphone. I rarely ever have guests on, but I do enjoy yapping. So yeah, I do enjoy just yapping about interesting topics. So today's episode is going to be kind of broad. I'm not entirely sure how I want to communicate what I'm feeling, but it's really just going to be in relation to the cost of success and my honest opinions about attending universities and getting an institutional education in this modern day era that we find ourselves in, with artificial intelligence and, you know, just so much access to information in the palm of our hands. And, you know, because of that, is it really worth following these set societal expectations and pathways towards success? You know, anyways, I'll get into it. But first, let's do a check-in. So wherever you are, I'd love you if you could just slow down and come to a place of presence in your body. Even if you're in the middle of something, just check in with yourself, and we'll take 3 deep breaths in through the nose. And a nice exhale through the mouth. 1 more deep inhale. And 1 last breath just like that, with a sip at the top. Okay, beautiful. Another little update is I apologize that I did not post content last week. I've been so snowed under with finishing up with my corporate job and university, and oh my goodness, I was just up to my neck in stuff to do last week. And yeah, I was feeling, because of that, quite conflicted about the way in which me prioritizing uni and my work commitments was interfering with my ability to be creative on here. And I think that so many of us can resonate with that, in the way that work and these mundane tasks can come to consume our lives in ways that we're not even conscious of. But in that consumption of our time and attention, it takes away from spending time doing things we enjoy, whether that's spending time with others, having social connection and relationships, or doing a sport, going to the gym, taking care of your health, going outside, doing a hike, going camping. There's just so many wonderful ways that we can experience this life. And so many of us sometimes forget how lucky we are to be in positions where we have that capacity to choose those pathways. And yet we continue to strive and follow these alternative pathways of action towards things that we may not even necessarily want to be doing, but instead we're doing it because of some overarching discourse or expectations. And yeah, so that's kind of the premise of this episode, coming off the back of last week and feeling so overwhelmed that I couldn't even do an episode. Another thing as well, in case you might notice throughout the episode, is I have Invisalign now on the top of my teeth, and it might make me have a lisp or something throughout this episode. So I apologize for that. But let's get into this week's lesson of the week. Now, this is from a Chris Williamson podcast, who I've only really just started watching a bit more frequently. Modern Wisdom is the name of the podcast. And he had this incredible guest on. His Instagram handle is young Pueblo. I will put it here, and I will put some of his posts here as well. He creates such incredibly powerful content that I've definitely resonated with over the years, and it's very meaningful and impactful. So he had young Pueblo on as a guest. His actual name is Diego Perez, this handsome, smart gentleman. So I just wanted to play a portion of Chris Williamson's video, and I might try and insert it on the screen, where they basically talk about the downsides of striving for success and how can we find balance in this time where, especially if you're someone who's quite self-aware and you want to cultivate presence and peace and equanimity in your life, but how do we maintain that while also feeling the need to strive for things and receive validation and feel like we're generating purpose in our lives in a society where the ways in which we can do that, or the options in front of us, sometimes are hindering our own happiness, or our ability to be happy. Why is that happening? Excuse me, please stop. And hindering our ability to be happy. Because that's the other thing. I heard this quote recently where it's like, you can never get happy, right? Happy is not something that you get, it's something that you must be. Okay, so we can never get successful. We can only be successful. If we try and adopt that mindset, how will that shift the way that we approach life and the choices that we're making? So anyways, I'll play this clip. It's a great clip. And I just think there's a lot that we can kind of build off and take away from it.
He's already looking over the shoulder of the present moment to consider what's coming next, to regret the fact that he hasn't done this in the past. And there's so many ways that you can ruin peak experiences. And then what you end up with is basically a string of miserable successes. You have the wall of all of the things. You've got the photos or you've got the accolades. You can say that you did the thing. But this is definitely true for me, man. This isn't me fucking castigating the audience. This is me saying, like, this is me. This is my experience when I'm untrained, when I haven't spent enough time meditating, when I'm not putting my mind where my feet are. You can have a repertoire of different things that you've achieved, and you weren't there for any of them.
That's one of the saddest moments in life, too, because I've gone through the same thing.
So yeah, I just think that, even though that was very short, it really does capture this notion that we can be so enthralled with striving and constantly being caught in a rat race to get somewhere that we're actually not even present in the present moment. Like, we're not even present when we do experience the successes, because we're constantly striving for a place to be in the future. But we need to recognize the future doesn't exist yet, right? And oftentimes we're striving because of past conditioning or things that happened in our past, or the way we relate to who we were in the past. But then the past is also dissolved and doesn't exist. All we have is the present. And that doesn't mean that we need to be just running on, hedonic primal impulses of pleasure. But it just means, I think, cultivating a sense of awareness about our actions and choices in the present moment. And if what we're really striving towards is worth it, if that makes sense. And the reason why I'm talking about this is I may as well just go into a little bit of my own backstory with education. And I made like the biggest mistake in my undergrad by choosing to study arts. And at the time when I made that decision of going to university, I knew that I wanted to go to university, but I didn't know exactly what I wanted to study. I eventually realized that, I'd love to be a psychologist or work with people, because I found that I had a real gift for connecting with others around a whole bunch of different experiences and topics. But unfortunately, I need a piece of paper to be able to do that formally. And on top of that piece of paper, I need, 6 years of university study and over hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of debt that I need to pay to receive an education that I feel, honestly, like I'm not saying this in an obnoxious, cocky way. I go to the University of Melbourne and the education there is just subpar. Like, the things that I learn, and this is just for me personally, based on, my own experience, in the sense that I've always been innately curious. Curiosity and learning is one of my primary values. And I feel so incredibly lucky to be able to live in a day and age where I have so much access to information, to expert information. There are so many incredible books, podcasts, even like free online courses that are like university standard level courses. We are domesticated from a young age to feel like we need to receive our information in a top-down way, where we're not exactly given the tools or the skills to take responsibility for our own learning. We always it's almost very disempowering in the way that we experience education, because it's almost like we need to be the subject in response to some, objective teacher to pass down information, when it doesn't have to be that way. We live in a day and age where we can actively seek out this information. And yes, that's often confounded by a lot of misinformation, disinformation that we can find online. And for that, I'm very grateful for my university education in the way that it taught me critical thinking and things like that. But it also can just come down to general common sense. Why does that keep happening? It can also just come down to general common sense. Sorry, I remember I just had to look it up. It's Duke University in the United States. They had a online astronomy course, and I remember taking that when I was 13 because I was so interested in space. And it was great. I remember learning about how to do Newton's calculations and, you know, work out the orbit of the planets. And it was this awesome course. And that's what we have access to today. And sometimes I wonder if people are really feel empowered to be able to proactively access that information. But yeah, I feel like just starting university recently and going back to, you know, because I've started my courses to complete a degree in psychology. Yeah, sometimes I'm just sitting in the lecture and I'm just like, I already know this, you know, or, you know, last week I'm sitting in a 2-hour lecture about how we've attached electrodes to monkeys' brains to see if they can count dots on a screen. And then by the end of the lecture, they're like, oh, this shows that monkeys might be able to count fruits in a tree and work out the length of tree branches. And I'm like, well, this is obvious. You're literally just stating the obvious. Why did I just waste 2 hours of my time learning about electrodes on monkey brains to be told something that is just, you know, and I'm like, this is such a waste of my time. How is knowing whether or not monkeys can count fruit going to make me a better psychologist, you know? Yet it's compulsory and it's part of this pathway. And so much of education, I think, can just be bureaucratic bulge, right? Where it's like, is this information? And obviously this gets to like issues in academia and the way that funding is allocated to different research projects. And is that really useful? Is that really a useful application of money to put stilts on ants and see if they can count steps? Like that was literally a study, is that they put stilts on little African ants to see if they could count their own steps. And I'm like, how is this really going to influence humanity on a large scale? How is this really going to make me better at treating depression? Anyways, so I do just think that's something that I'm feeling conflicted about. And unfortunately, a quality that I have is that I put a lot of expectations on myself to do well. And I have this problem with perfectionism around my grades and feeling like I need to do everything holistically and properly and the right way. So if I have to sit through a 2-hour lecture on monkey brains, then I will. But I think what we need to be honest with ourselves about, including myself, is the way in which that 3 hours of my life that I've just spent in a lecture that's not even beneficial to myself or anyone else that I'm ever going to encounter, that's my time in my life that I'm wasting, that I could be spending doing something so much more productive, so much more enriching. Whether that's volunteering, whether it's learning about something that actually is going to be applicable in the real world, whether it's sharing information on my YouTube, like on here. And I think we just need to get real about that in our everyday lives, whether it's in relation to the mundane things that we study at university or the mundane things you do at your job if you're in a corporate role. I just resigned from my corporate role and so much of that was bullshit. Like so much of that was just sitting doing nothing, ticking little electronic boxes on a laptop, which will go to some database that doesn't even mean anything, just for logistics to go towards the government, but it actually means nothing. Like, it's just really interesting how we have created these systems in which humans become entrapped in, and they're not even productive. Yet we tell ourselves that it is. Or there's this outside external expectation and messaging that it is productive. You do need to sit through this 2-hour lecture about monkey brains, about monkeys counting dots on a projector screen, because it's part of an institutional degree and it's going to make you look really smart. Like it just makes me giggle because I just can't believe how preposterous some of these things are. There have been so many moments in my psychology degree where I'm listening to a lecture. Like last year in my cognitive psychology course, it was like, we're learning about how bees, when they do a waggle dance, and which is like them wagging their little buzzers, their little stingers, when the bee waggles in an angle that is directed towards the sun, other bees waggle the same. And I'm like, what is this? What is this? Like, am I in the Matrix? Like, why am I sitting in a lecture learning about this to be a psychologist? This is such bullshit. Like, and then to think that like you do your undergrad degree and then you have to go on and do a whole year of research on a research project. How much is actually gained from these research projects or these research papers? Okay, there are thousands upon hundreds of thousands of research papers out there in the field of psychology and all of the sciences, of which many have zero impact on the broader way in which psychological practice is instituted and implemented. I'm so sorry to have such a ramble like this, but to have an honours year of research to then get into a master's program where you do finally get to the practical side of things of being a psychologist is just mind-blowing to me. And it makes me question whether or not I'm on the right path and whether or not I want to follow this, you know, cookie cutter ABCD pathway to become a psychologist, because so much of it just seems like a waste of time. And then who knows, once you actually get out into the field, yeah, are you viewed as credible? Like, sure, but there are just so many people as well that can amount to so much success without having a piece of paper and hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of debt under their belt. And again, this is just really highlighting the way in which different values I possess conflict majorly. So there I am striving, trying to get this piece of paper, but at the same time, I'm simultaneously wasting so much of my life doing things and paying attention to things that aren't actually going to have a broader impact or provide meaning or benefit others. And, you know, I have to question, well, is that really in alignment with my values? Yes, I value learning, and I think that we are incredibly privileged. I've always said that I feel so incredibly privileged and grateful to have access to the education system that I do. And I think I highly value learning, but do I highly value some of the aspects of institutionalized learning from a top-down major university that just gets paid hundreds and thousands and millions of dollars worth of tuition fees to deliver useless lectures and assignments that will have almost no real world impact? No, I don't really value that. Especially when it comes at the cost of my ability to be happy and my ability to provide love and care and connection to other people in my life. I don't really value that. So anyways, I'm sharing this to see if anyone else resonates as well. You know, I know that this isn't an uncommon experience. I know that other people go through this, whether, you know, it's through striving to be a lawyer or medicine, or, you know, there are all these different pathways that we want to go down in order to actually optimize our ability to be of service to others. But along that pathway, it seems like we're having to experience these seasons of stagnation and uncertainty and roadblocks almost to accessing our Dharma in order to get to our Dharma. So, and yeah, I know I've seen other people share about this when, you know, they're going through university to become, yeah, like I said, a doctor or a nurse, or a teacher, whatever it might be. So yeah, and I think I find comfort in that. But at the same time, yeah, it just means that I'm rethinking a lot and trying to navigate how I situate myself in this way, you know, and do I just put less pressure on myself to get those perfect grades and just try my best and be happy and content with not reaching those exceedingly perfect grades. And I think that is essentially what I have to do. And I'm excited. It's a scary thing for me because I've always kind of placed value, almost equating my worth to my grades and thinking that that equals success. But I don't want to get perfect grades on knowing if a monkey can count dots on a screen or not. In the grand scheme of things, I don't care about that. So anyways, and I don't think anyone else does. But yeah, I hope that you guys enjoyed this little short episode. Please share below if you have similar experiences and how did you cope with that? How have you overcome that? Because for me, I think it looks like just returning to my practices. You know, I think one of the reasons why I've had this big realization this year is because I have been so committed and dedicated to my meditation and like my daily practices of yoga and really resonating so much with Buddhist teachings. So yeah, and so I think now it's just a time, I'm going into a moment of, you know, needing to find balance and equanimity in and amongst this season of my life with uni coming into the fold. And I would just love to thank you so much for listening to this week's episode if you have. If you have any other suggestions in relation to self-help or Buddhism or spirituality, any topics, please leave them below because I would love to talk about things that you guys are interested in and not just what is going on in my life. Okay, see you guys next week. Bye.